Thank you for joining me on the Fire Rescue Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, AZ. I find the research and resources and then provide the fire service with the so what, now what, to ensure the health and well-being of every member of our profession. Together, let's thrive. Hello everyone. It's AZ and I'm here for a solo episode today. I haven't done one of these for a while, so buckle up. It should be a good one. I wanted to wish a happy podcast-versary to me and to my team, Jeremiah and Lex. I just looked back and my first podcast episode dropped on September 12th, 2 years ago. So happy anniversary to all of us. This is episode 122. And today, again, as I mentioned, it's going to be a solo episode. I was filling out a scholarship application and it basically asked, how are you going to make an impact in the strength and conditioning world and how would the scholarship help you? Which is it's a valid question. But I got to thinking, I don't know as I've ever told all of you my story. I've told my story or parts of it on various other podcasts, but I've never done it on my own podcast. So I think that's what we're going to do today. But before we get into that, I have a few life updates. First things first. School started on the 19th of September, and it's awesome. It's absolutely fabulous. I'm on campus 2 days a week. I'm teaching an undergraduate upper level 400 class, motor control and learning. I'm going to be honest with you folks. I pooped kittens when they asked me to teach that class. I was really afraid and I'm loving it. And, people have been super helpful. The instructors who taught it previously gave me all their materials. Megan from my lab taught it last year. She gave me all the slides, super helpful. Dr. Jenna Yentes from Texas A&M sent me her entire course. I that woman, so many beers, but she sent me her entire course, her labs, her slides and everything. And so long story short, I'm loving it. I have 78 students in my class and it's awesome. I'm also taking 2 classes. One of them is online and it's a statistics class. And I'm, how should I say this? I feel ill-equipped to take that class. I've never taken a statistics class before. And I'm in this class and I just feel like a fish out of water, but I have an awesome study group, Chrissy from my lab and Paige from another lab. We're in a study group together. We're getting through stats. And then I'm also taking biomechanics, which meets on Thursday afternoon. So Thursday's a really long day for me in Stillwater. I get there about 8 o'clock and I leave at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, but loving it, loving it, loving it. Next update. It finally came through. I have been approved to volunteer at the dog shelter, at the animal shelter, I should say. And so if you follow me on social media, you can see all of the pictures of all the dogs. I never post pictures of cats. I'm violently allergic to cats, so I just steer clear of them. But again, it's the Edmond Animal Shelter. If you are in Oklahoma and looking for a pet, there's some great ones over there. They're so awesome, and I'm having so much fun doing that. I posted this on social media last week. I'm in the process of interviewing for neighbors. They are building houses all around me now, and so I would like to pick my own neighbor. So if you're interested in living in Guthrie, Oklahoma, let me know. I will put you through the interview process and see if you can get approved to be my neighbor. Honestly, the homes are beautiful. It's going to be a great neighborhood. It's very much under construction right now. You can probably hear hammering if you listen carefully, but it's a beautiful neighborhood. So let me know if you want to live in Oklahoma. Earlier this summer, I was pretty lonely, and so I went ahead and made myself a Bumble Friends account, and it was kind of a bust, except for I met one person. She's awesome. We've done brunch, we played pickleball, we had appetizers and drinks one afternoon. It is amazing. So I can't say enough good things about Bumble Friends, but it's very much like online dating. You just have to sort of weed through all the, what should we say? We'll just say it, weed through the garbage and you will find the gems. Next update, the Oklahoma State University OKC campus Fire Academy is getting started again this week. And so I'm going to be working with their strength and conditioning again, probably going to be going there 1 to 2 days a week in the morning and helping them with their health and wellness and fitness and performance and all of those things. And at the same time, getting started on a little bit of research. So that's pretty exciting. And then I think the last update I have for you, 7-Minute Science, we had it on August 26th. Recording still hasn't gone out yet. Drew's working on it. He's got a lot going on in his world. But our next one is going to be October 28th, and it's going to be practitioner-based. So instead of researchers, we are having practitioners who use evidence-based programming and applications in their coaching capacities. So confirmed guests, Megan Lautz and Vanessa Frost-Piagrita, previous podcast guests. And the third guest is to be determined. I think that is all of the announcements. So today I want to basically tell you my story and how I got to be where I am today. Because sometimes I think people think of me just as this entity that does health and wellness for fire departments. Every once in a while, I get a message that says, "Hi, I love what you do. I want to do what you do. Can you tell me how to do what you do?" And my answer to those people is, wouldn't you rather do what you do? Like, find what sets your soul on fire and do that instead of seeing what I do and trying to do it as well. But I digress. People think that I'm just this entity that provides services. And I guess maybe people don't ever consider where the entity came from. As a quick little background too, I mentioned Lex and I mentioned Jeremiah. I also have Sandy. None of those people are employees. All of those people are contractors. Lex works on my website. She designed my original logo. She helps me with some social media stuff. She designs all of my swag. She works on SEO for my website. She's a digital genius, and that's what Lex does. But she's not my employee. She's a contractor, and she works a few hours a month for me. Jeremiah is also a contractor. He edits my podcast episodes and also keeps me laughing. Technically, he is the humor in the business, but again, not an employee. And then Sandy is my accountant, and she does all my books every month and gives me wonderful reports, but again, not an employee. Fire Rescue Wellness, I got to think if I want to say this. I'm going to say it. Fire Rescue Wellness isn't a company. Fire Rescue Wellness is me. Fire Rescue Wellness is AZ. And yes, I have an LLC, and yes, I run a company, but I am Fire Rescue Wellness. And the reason Fire Rescue Wellness exists is because life for me wasn't easy. So I'm going to take you way back to my childhood. And because of the way I grew up, I was dead set. I wanted to be a law enforcement officer. And I didn't want to be, say, a county sheriff or a city police officer. I wanted to be a federal law enforcement officer, specifically FBI agent. I don't know how I landed on FBI agent but from a very young age, I wanted to be an FBI agent. And so, I had a couple side trips, thought about music for a while, thought about a few different career paths, but it always came back to that main road of law enforcement FBI agent. And so back in the 90s, when I was going to school, and the required requirements may be very similar now, I'm not sure, but there was one of basically 5 ways that you could get into the FBI. And you had to have a bachelor's degree at a minimum. But the 5 ways were foreign language, accounting. Now I'm not going to remember them all. Foreign language, accounting, computer. So basically, if you were a computer hacker, they wanted you. Attorney, or a degree in science. Now, most of those degrees also came along with, they wanted you to have 3 years of work experience. And so I thought, perfect, I'm interested in science. I'm going to get this bachelor's in biology. I'll get a minor in chemistry. I'll go get my 3 years of work experience. And then I will be an FBI agent. And so when I graduated from college, what I found out very quickly was that you really cannot get a job with a bachelor's in biology. I could have maybe gone and worked for, say, Forest Service or something like that, but that just didn't captivate my interest. And so getting that 3 years of work experience with that degree was going to be very difficult. So I went back to the drawing board and read the fine print, and it said if you had a master's degree, they would waive the work experience criteria. And so I was at the University of South Dakota for my undergraduate, and I had been doing some research at the School of Medicine, which was basically across the street from the undergrad college. And I was becoming very familiar with the professors in the biochemistry and molecular biology department. And so I asked them, I said, can I get a master's degree? And they said, we don't have a master's degree, but you can get a PhD. It'll take you like 3 to 5 years. And so I thought, okay, I'm an overachiever. I'll do a PhD in 3 years and then be on my happy way to the FBI with a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology. When I say it now, it doesn't make sense, but at the time, it was a means to an end. So I started this degree program and very quickly found out that I didn't really have the patience for research, at least that kind of research. So pouring gels and doing electrophoresis and isolating cells and yuck. It was just yuck. I didn't like it. And so things weren't progressing for me as quickly as I had hoped. Also, side note, anyone that tells you can get a PhD in 3 years is full of crap. It's just not going to happen. And so I was starting to think like, I'm going to be here for 5 or 6 years getting this PhD I don't even want. What am I thinking? What am I doing? So I went to my advisor, who was great. And I said, Robin, I'm like hating this. I am not enjoying this at all. And is there any way I can get out of here with a master's? I know we don't have a master's program, but can I get out of here with a master's? And she, bless her heart, went to bat for me with the college, and they awarded me a master's degree. Of course, after I did all of my requisite research and I wrote my thesis and defended it and all of those things. So I came out of the University of South Dakota School of Medicine with a master's degree in biochemistry. I went back to apply to the FBI, and I got not very far in the process and didn't meet their vision criteria. And so science is very important, and understanding science is very important. And let me just tell you this, their vision criteria was not scientific. So it had to be no worse than 20/40 uncorrected. And mine was way worse, like way worse. And at the time, the only corrective surgeries that were offered, now this is in like 1996 or so, the only corrective surgeries that were offered, surgery, singular, was called RK, radial keratotomy, something like that, RK. But the government didn't allow it because they were afraid that under pressure, so meaning say you were flying and you had had the surgery, your eyeballs might explode. like this was the real explanation for why that you couldn't have this surgery. Science is important. There was no scientific evidence to say that that was going to happen. But also maybe there wasn't any scientific evidence to say that it wasn't going to happen. But long story short, I was out in the cold. This career that I had put not only all of my eggs in the basket, I had put other people's eggs in the basket. This career was not happening and I was lost. I didn't know what to do. I was still working at the medical school as a research associate in the lab where I had gotten my master's degree, and I wasn't loving it, but it was fine. And then I was also working at campus recreation, teaching fitness classes, personal training, those types of things. And what I found was that is what I enjoyed far more than research. And so I started to think, remember, I'm at the University of South Dakota. The population of South Dakota is not very big. If every potential client that was going to be anyone's client in the whole state was my client, I still probably wouldn't have been able to stay in business in South Dakota. So I started looking at places that were what I would consider kind of like the mecca of health and fitness. Now, keep in mind, small town South Dakota, I have these credentials and these certifications, and I have to get continuing education. So I had been traveling, say, to Sioux Falls, to Sioux City, Iowa, I think to Omaha, Nebraska, Minneapolis, traveling around, getting these continuing education credits. Through my travels, I had met a gentleman named David Mesereau. Now, if you go way back, some of you probably weren't even alive in the 90s, but if you go way back to the 90s, there was a company, Reebok, which is still around. Reebok had a whole team of what they called master trainers. It was a big deal to be a Reebok master trainer. You got to be on videos, and it was a big deal. So David Mesereau was a Reebok master trainer, and he was the fitness director at a very prestigious club in Chicago, actually in Evanston, called Evanston Athletic Club. And so Chicago and working for David Mesereau was one of the options that I put on my list. And then I looked at Arizona, because Arizona seemed to be sort of a mecca of health and fitness, and Florida. Those were kind of the three states, areas that I looked at. Now, please don't ask me why I chose Illinois, because for the life of me, I could not explain it to you other than I wanted to work for David Mesereau. And so packed up, moved to Illinois, moved to Naperville, of all places. Why would I move to Naperville if I'm going to work in Evanston? If you don't know your geography, there is no good way to get to Evanston from anywhere, including Naperville. And I actually got hired, but that wasn't a full-time job. So I started, I was working part-time there, and I was working part-time at this company called SCW that put on fitness conventions throughout the country. So I was actually kind of having fun and enjoying life. And then David Mesereau retired, quit, went on to another job. I don't know, but David Mesereau wasn't at Evanston Athletic Club anymore. And driving to Evanston Athletic Club got to be kind of a bummer. And so I actually switched gears. I started working at a more local fitness center, and I was actually there for quite a number of years. So we're at about 1998, 99, coming up on 2000, and I'm crushing it in the fitness industry. I'm working at this health and wellness center. I'm actually working for Johnny G in the spinning program. And so spinning is sending me all over the country doing trainings, and I'm meeting all of these people. It's amazing. I'm making great money. But here's the problem with health and wellness. And I don't even think it's changed to this day. If you work in health and wellness, you can work full time. I was at that stupid fitness center 60 hours a week, teaching classes, training clients, working floor hours, no benefits, no insurance, no paid time off, no sick time, no vacation. And unless you are very, very strict with your clients, if they don't show up, you don't get paid. Now, let me just digress for a second again. I'm doing a lot of that today. I have really good boundaries now. If you schedule an appointment with me, I tell you when you schedule it, this is how much it costs, and this is what happens if you don't show up. And what happens if you don't show up is I keep your money and you get nothing. I have no problem explaining that to people now. If you call me 12 hours before with some sort of a sob story, it is at my discretion whether I'm going to refund some, part, or all of your money. You know that when you book with me. That was also our policy at the fitness center. But as an individual personal trainer who's in their early 30s, I had a really hard time enforcing that. And so when my clients called me up, no show, no call, whatever, I wasn't getting paid, which is fine because I was making a ton of money otherwise, but it just got to feel very insecure. I am a person, my nervous system thrives on security, safety, and security. And it just got to be feeling insecure. And so I started looking at other careers. Now I need to go back to the FBI for a second, because initially the vision requirement is what kicked me out. I also need to tell you that there was an age requirement. You had to be hired in federal law enforcement by the time you were 35. So just keep that in mind. So I'm looking around for careers. It didn't even occur to me to look back at federal law enforcement because my vision, I wasn't going to be able to do it. But I'm looking around and investigating, and somehow I landed on a federal website where I saw that they had lifted that requirement about the vision. Not the actual requirement, but they now allowed corrective surgeries, and LASIK had been invented in the interim. And so they allowed you to have a corrective surgery and meet their requirement. So I was like, holy balls, I'm back in the chase. This is amazing. So I saved up. This is hilarious. But I saved up for my LASIK surgery. I don't know where I saw this, probably read it on the internet somewhere, but it said when you're paying for something, always pay in a bigger bill. So if it's, I don't know, 75 cents, pay with a 5, take all of that change and put it in a jar. If it's $14.65, pay with a 20, put all the change in the jar. It sounds ridiculous. My dudes, I saved up for a LASIK surgery in like 10 months. And I went in 2000, I got the LASIK surgery, and it was the best $3,600 I've ever spent in my life. It was incredible. With someone with vision as bad as mine was, waking up and being able to see every morning was so incredible. I loved it so much. And then with my newly corrected, perfect vision, I filled out an application, but not for the FBI, because the FBI had hurt my feelings. Let me tell you this, do not hurt my feelings. Hurting my feelings is way worse than stealing, in my opinion. It's way worse than punching me. Hurting my feelings hurts. And the FBI hurt my feelings. And so I decided I'm not going back to them. I'm not going to apply. And so I landed on Secret Service, because who would not want to be the dude speaking into their wrist? Who would not want to be the dudette riding on the side of a car? Who would not want that? So I applied for the Secret Service, had to make several trips downtown Chicago. That was awful. Passed everything with flying colors. And in like late August of 2001, I got my letter that said, we're offering you employment. We don't know when the academy is going to start, but you are getting hired. And I was psyched. I was so excited. And then on September 11th, I stood at the fitness center with all the members and watched the planes hit the Twin Towers. And at that moment, I didn't realize the enormity of how that would impact me personally. I realized how that would impact the entire country, the military, the president, each individual American. I realized all that. I did not realize that that would take my opportunity away from me, because the government, for lack of a better way to explain it, freaked out. They didn't know what to do, and my offer was rescinded. And so I was devastated. I was lost. And I was sad because the Secret Service now hurt my feelings too, although kind of wasn't their fault. But I was so sad. And so I just went back. I doubled down, kept working really hard at the fitness center. Again, crushing it, making a ton of money, no insurance. I had a big health scare. I had no insurance. That's a topic that, you know what, let's dig into it. I'm telling you my story. Let's dig into it. So I had a bout, we'll call it a bout, of heart failure. Like, I'm 31-ish years old, 30 years old. I'm laying on the floor one day with my client. Now, I do not recommend this. I do not condone this. I no longer exercise with my clients, okay? But I didn't know better back then. And so I'm laying on the floor with my clients doing an ab exercise. My feet are up in the air. And I look up at my ankles and I'm like, why are my ankles spilling over the top of my pants? They were huge. My ankles were like the size of my thighs. I had like thankles. The thighs went into the knee, into the calf, right into the ankles. Thankles. And I was laying there. I'm like, gosh, I'm kind of like short of breath too. What is going on? But I didn't think that much of it because I'm young and I'm stupid. And I went home and I went to bed that night, and I was laboring with my breathing. It was so difficult to breathe. And when I got up the next morning, I did what I did when I was 30, which is weigh myself every day. And I had gained like 20 pounds since the day before. And again, I don't know what I don't know. I just know that I don't feel very good. And I have no insurance. And so what do? No, I don't go to the doctor. I call a friend and I say, Dave, can I talk to your wife? Because something's going on. I'm not feeling good. His wife was a PA. And so she was horrified. And she's like, you need to get into the ER right now. And so I went to the ER. Long story, super long. I had viral cardiomyopathy. And the thing that really sucked was that each step of the process, I had to ask the person, how much is this going to cost? And then I had to make decisions on whether I wanted a test or a treatment based on if I thought I could afford it. Don't recommend. 0 out of 10. Don't recommend. The great thing is I was young, I was healthy. It resolved on its own. I never had medication. Like, as soon as it had come on, it went away. I woke up a couple mornings later. I was back to my normal weight. My ankles weren't spilling over my socks and everything was fine. And I got like these bills for $12,000 and $15,000. And here's what I didn't know. I didn't know I could call the hospital and say, I can't pay this, but I can pay you $500. And they would say, okay. So I was paying off those bills $5 So I'm in this job. I'm making great money. I have no insurance, and I'm not feeling safe and comfortable again. So I'm still looking for a new career. And then I met the firefighters. A whole bunch of local firefighters used to come into the gym and work out there. And I got to talking to them about their job. And boy, oh boy, did they tell me the best parts about the job. They told me, we only work every 3 days. We get a whole shift off every month. Like, we just don't have to come to work. We have insurance. We have vacation time. We have a pension. And we have all kinds of other benefits. And I was thinking, sign me the hell up. Oh yeah, we get to drive ladder trucks and wear uniforms. I mean, sign me up. This was perfect. It was like law enforcement, only the fire service hadn't hurt my feelings. And so I came onto the fire service right around the transition time, at least at our department. They were transitioning from, you don't need anything but a high school diploma to apply here. We'll put you through the academy. We'll put you through paramedic school. They had transitioned to, sorry, Charlie, you have to have your paramedic license to get hired, but we'll put you through fire academy training. And then I think you've probably heard me talk on the podcast before. They went way too far. All of the departments in Illinois, they went way too far. They got way too picky. Like, you have to have XYZ, all of this stuff. We're not paying for anything. You have to have it all. So I went to EMT basic school, night school. I went to paramedic school. I started taking tests, and I got hired at that very department where I had spoken with the firefighters. And I was thrilled. I was so proud, so excited, beyond elated, over the moon. I cannot tell you how excited I was to have that job. And I cannot tell you how fast it happened that things went very dark. Because on my first day of the fire service, the lady, we didn't have human resources, but the lady that was sort of our human resources signed us up for the insurance. Guess what? My deductible was $250 a year when I started. I think it's $3,000 now. But anyway, signed me up for the insurance, signed me up for the pension program, got my next of kin, contact information. The union talked to us, the chief talked to us, the training people talked to us, everyone talked to us. No one talked to us about mental health, about nutrition, about physical activity, about emotional support, about financial wellness. Nobody talked to us about that. So I'm a 33-year-old farm girl from South Dakota. I have no emotional maturity. I have no conflict resolution skills, and I am the only female in the department. The lights started to dim very quickly. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know. But I started to get really angry. My angerometer was on a hair trigger. I could get from 0 to pissed off in milliseconds. Not so much at my coworkers, because I wouldn't dare. I would not dare create conflict with my coworkers. But people in the community, people outside my job, I started self-isolating. I started drinking too much. I started binge watching television. I started making plans and then canceling them because, quote, something came up. Well, you know what came up? I'm at home in my pajamas on my couch. That's what came up. And what I didn't realize at the time was that I was experiencing symptoms of depression. And the trauma that I was being exposed to and the sleep deprivation that was accumulating were not helping. But no one at any point had said to me, in this job, you will see things that you will not be able to unsee, and that is okay to talk about how those things make you feel. I did not know that it was okay to say, I am not doing fine after the lieutenant handed me the dead baby. I'm not fine. I didn't know that was okay. And so all of this stuff started to accumulate, and I started to despise the fire service. And we're talking a year and a half on. I was looking for a way out because I was so miserable. And so again, I started looking for options. And I was too old, I thought, to apply for federal law enforcement again, because 35 was the cutoff. But I started snooping around and I saw that they had raised that cutoff to 37 and a half. And so I decided, I am so miserable here in the fire service. That is my best option. And so the FBI hurt my feelings. The Secret Service didn't hire me, but they couldn't help it. And so this time I went to investigate Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. I figured that would be perfect. I was already a fire investigator. I was interested in arson. I was interested in explosions. I figured this would dovetail nicely into the training that I've had, and it would get me out of the fire service. And so I actually got that job. I got the offer. It was a done deal. But the problem was I was offered the job in East St. Louis, Missouri. No, East St. Louis, Illinois, I think it is. Hell if I know, it's a bad area. And I had a couple things working against me at the time. I had just purchased a home. And so if I'm going to move, like evacuate the dance floor from where I lived, I wasn't going to be able to sell that home. I was going to take a bath on that. I was also married, and so I would have had an unemployed spouse. And so I just had to take a really adult look at it and say, I'm stuck in the fire service. Like I can't take this opportunity as much as I want to. I can't take this opportunity. And so I turned it down. And the really sad thing is they couldn't tell me this at the time. It would have been unethical to do so. But they said I would have only been in East St. Louis for maybe 6 months. And then I could have petitioned to come back to the Chicago office, but they couldn't tell me that. But I think, everything I've done in my life is a piece of a puzzle. And when you put those pieces together, it makes me uniquely qualified to do what I do now. And although coming back, or I should say staying in the fire service, didn't feel good to me at that time, the end of the story is positive. So that was 2007 when I got the offer and subsequently turned it down. And things just continued to get kind of darker and darker. A few times, one of my coworkers said something to me like, hey, you got to knock it off. You can't treat people like that. But no one ever pulled me aside and said, hey, when you got hired here, you were like bubbly and smiley and outgoing, and you are a different person. What is going on? That never happened. And so things just kept getting darker and darker and darker until I believe it was 2012. This was sort of one of the turning points. It was in June. I used to remember the date exactly in my head. I think it was June 12th of 2012. I was laying in bed. It was unseasonably cool outside, and so I had the windows open, and I had my alarm set for 6 a.m. because I was really excited. I was going to be going up to the Milwaukee Brewers game with my best friend Andy and his whole family. And so this was a family outing. They considered me family. I was super excited. So I went to bed, windows are open, and at around midnight, I heard an unmistakable sound. If you have ever heard the sound, you're not going to mess it up. And it was the sound of windows blowing out due to a fire. And I opened my eyes. I was facing the windows. I opened my eyes and I could see the flames shooting out of the house a few houses behind me. So my house was on a east-west street, and the back of my house was on a walking path, and then the houses behind me went on a north-south street. And so this house wasn't directly behind me, but the back of that house was sort of kitty corner from mine, and I could see flames shooting out the window. And so I sprang into action. I don't know what I thought I was going to do, but I threw on flip-flops, grabbed my phone. I exited through the garage. I grabbed my garage door opener out of the car, and I shut the garage door. And I should have just left that garage door opener like in a plant somewhere, but for some reason I carried it with me. And I go running through my backyard, and I see my neighbor Hayden was sort of standing in the ditch watching, and I actually lost one of my shoes in that ditch. So I ditched both of my shoes and went running. Again, phone, garage door opener, no pockets, can't explain, I don't know. And so I ran over to the front of the house, felt the door. It wasn't really that hot. Opened the door, and the room was charged with smoke down to like a foot from the floor. Thick, black, chunky smoke. Untenable conditions. Untenable conditions. So I shut that door and I ran around to the back. Again, I don't know what I thought I was going to do, but as I was running around to the back, I looked up and there were these two very large individuals getting ready to jump from the second floor. And so I could hear the sirens. I knew that the firefighters were coming. And I told them, I said, please don't jump. Go shut your door. You're going to be fine. Don't jump. And I ran around to the back of the house. Again, don't know what I thought I was going to be doing. And at this time, there's like a gallery of people gathering, watching. And in my mind, I'm thinking, why in the actual fuck is nobody doing anything but me? But I really wasn't doing anything. I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And so I went back, ran around back to the front door, opened it again, somehow thinking the conditions were going to be different. I don't know. They weren't. Shut the door. Went to run back to the side of the house to ask those people if they had a ladder. Because again, I can hear the sirens coming, but I feel like I want to do something. I ran face to face into this giant man. And I shouldn't say face to face. My face was like at his nipple line. Giant man. I bounced off of him. And I looked at him and I said, is this your house? And he says, huh? Like dumbfounded. And I grabbed him by the collar and I shook him and I said, is this your house? And he said, yeah. And I said, is anyone inside besides those two people? And he goes, yeah, my baby cousin. My heart sank. So I asked him, like, do you have a ladder? Where's the cousin? All of these things. And then as I'm talking to this guy, I hear plop, plop. The people have now jumped. So now we have 2 very large individuals with 4 very broken legs. And in my mind, a baby inside. And so I'm trying to drag these people away from the house, because now the flames are coming out the other window. I'm dragging them away, and I'm thinking, these people are so heavy and these other people are watching me. Why isn't anyone helping? And so I actually started screaming for someone to help me, and some individuals came over and helped me drag the people. And I went back to the front door one more time. Again, how am I thinking the conditions are going to be different? I don't know, but all I know is there's a baby inside. And as I'm facing the front door, I hear the most glorious sound I have ever heard in my life, which is an air brake setting and a fire engine going into pump. And so I turned back around. The officer was coming for his walk around, and I told him, I said, there's 2 people that jumped from the 2nd floor. There's a baby inside. And he goes, okay. And so then I ran over to the fire engine and said to the driver, I'm like, where's your hydrant bag? I'm sure he thought I was Looney Tunes, but I called it the right thing. So he pointed to a cabinet. So I helped him make his hydrant connection. And then I watched them go defensive. And I said to this driver, I'm like, there's a baby inside. In my mind, I can think of this now. No one's going in there. Those conditions are untenable. No one's alive and no one's going in. This is logical. But my lizard brain was screaming about this baby. So, I mean, what do you do when a house in your neighborhood is on fire? Well, here's what I did. I walked home, I shut my windows and my shades, and I tried to go back to sleep. And I wasn't successful. And so early in the morning, I called Andy. I told him what happened. I said, I really don't feel like I want to go to this game. I'm so sorry. And he said, oh my gosh, no, I'll come sit with you. And every fiber in my being wanted to say, yes, please come sit with me, hold my hand, and like hug me. But I had to be a tough girl. And so I said, oh no, I'm fine. It's okay. I'm just going to get some sleep. I don't want to ruin your family outing. Blah, blah, blah. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. So after I spoke with Andy, I managed to get a little bit of sleep, and I woke up and I was still not okay. And so the logical thing to do is what? Spend money. So I went out and did some retail therapy and bought myself some nice things. And I came home with all my shopping bags, and there were men sitting on my front porch. And my usual move, if people were sitting on my front porch, would be to scurry in through the garage, shut the door, and hide. But these men were wearing uniforms, so I didn't do that. So I went in through the front door, and they said to me, I hear that you were involved in the fire last night. And I said, involved seems to be a very strong word. What are you implying? And the guy was like, no, I'm sorry. The fire department said that you were on the scene and you might have some information. We're from the fire marshal's office, and I'm Detective XYZ from the police department, and I'm from the ATF. And I was like, ooh, ATF, hello, friend. But we sat at my kitchen table, and I told them the story of what had happened. And I just broke down when I was telling them about the baby. And I think this was a professional courtesy. I'm pretty sure that they wouldn't have done this with a normal civilian, but the agent said, ma'am, it wasn't a baby. It was a 20-some-year-old individual. And the person that you had your hands on was an arsonist. So he shot his quote unquote baby cousin, and then he started the house on fire with his brother-in-law and sister or some sort of relatives in the house. So he doused the house with gasoline, lit it, and left after he shot his cousin. And so there was no baby. And even if you had made entry, there was going to be no saving. So evidently, Bristol Kendall was one of the fire departments that responded, and many full-time firefighters in the area worked part-time for Bristol Kendall. And so when they were transporting this man, the one I had my hands on, he basically spilled his guts in the ambulance. And unfortunately for him, one of the medics in that ambulance was a investigator from a nearby department. So he basically screwed himself pretty big by spilling his guts. But after I had the conversation with the fire marshal, the detective, and the ATF agent, I thought I would feel better, and I didn't feel better. In fact, I felt worse. I felt probably worse than I've ever felt in my life, because in the fire service, you get very few opportunities to make a big difference. And I felt like this was an opportunity to make a big difference, and I didn't. Never mind the fact that I wasn't on duty. I didn't have any protective equipment. This wasn't my fault. This wasn't my problem. All I kept telling myself was I missed potentially my only chance ever to make a big difference. And I was swirling. I was in a downward spiral, and I didn't know what to do. And so I did the only thing I could think of, which was call our headquarters station. And the best possible person to answer that call answered. Lieutenant Scott Gray answered the phone, and I was trying so hard to be a tough girl, but I just dissolved in a blubbering puddle of snot, trying to tell him what happened. And I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to tell someone what happened and have them make me feel better. But instinctually, I don't know why, but he ordered me to pack a bag and come into the station. And I tried to be a tough girl with him like I was with Andy, and he wasn't having it. He just kept saying, pack your shit and you're coming to stay with us tonight. And so I packed my shit and I went to stay with them at the station. And when I got there, we ordered a pizza, and I told them what happened, and I cried, ugly cried. And I felt a little bit better. When I woke up the next morning, I felt better. Not good, but better. And so, again, this was like 2012. And I was a fraction of the person that I was when I got hired in the fire service. I was hanging on by a thread. I was profoundly depressed, angry all the time, and just not really understanding. I would just explain it like, well, that's just how I am. But that's not how I was. That was not how I was when I came into the fire service, and I didn't realize that the fire service changed me. And so the great news is I can report to you. Let's back up a little bit. I truly feel that there is a very thin and fine line between dipping your toe across the line into suicidal ideation and not. And I never dipped my toe. I never said to myself, I don't have hope. My life sucks so bad. I don't want to live it anymore. I never said that. I never felt that. And once I came out on the other side, which is what I'll tell you about in a second, once I came out on the other side, I got really analytical, and I got really, really, really critical with my thinking. Why was I not a statistic? How was I profoundly depressed, so sad, so angry, and never considered that my life would be better without having a life. How? And here's what I've come up with. Through all of my training in health and wellness and all of my coaching, I was focusing for myself on the same things I focus with my clients: the importance of sleep, the importance of nutrition, the importance of hydration, and the importance of physical activity. And all of those things independently improve your mental health outlook. All of those things done together exponentially improve things. And so without even knowing it, I was saving my own life. I was saving my own life by prioritizing sleep and nutrition, hydration, and physical activity. So even though for an entire over a decade in the fire service, I was absolutely miserable. I was simply surviving. I wasn't thriving. I definitely wasn't kicking ass. I never considered taking my life because I was doing all those positive things to help my mental health. And so how did I get out of it? Someone turned the light bulb on for me. And if you listened a few episodes ago to Kenny Schroeder, we talked about Matt Olson. Matt Olson was an Illinois firefighter. He's retired now. He started the Illinois Firefighter Peer Support Group. Matt told his story. Matt came to my department. He stood up in front of us and he told his story. And by him telling his story, the light bulb came on for me. I would like to report to you that I signed up for counseling, and nope, I did not. It took me years. It took me years to sign up for therapy. But what it did do was normalize having a conversation. So no longer did I keep all of that crap inside. No longer did I allow someone to hand me a dead baby and then never speak of it again. Matt Olson turned back on the lights. And by turning back on the lights, he made me realize how important it is to educate firefighters, because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that your sleep deprivation is messing with your mental health. You don't know that the fact that you're not moving, you're not exercising, is impacting your overall wellness. You don't know what you don't know. And so I shifted gears. I probably should have mentioned the whole time I was in the fire service, I was still working as a coach, taking clients like general population, bodybuilding, baseball performance, hockey performance, weight loss. I was taking all these general clients. And when the light bulb came on, I realized there's 1,000,003 coaches to help those clients. There are not enough coaches helping firefighters. And so I shifted gears. I shifted entirely away from general population and only onto the fire service, because I have the unique perspective of being not only a career firefighter, but a professional strength and conditioning coach, a credentialed nutritionist, someone who has put in the time and the reps to understand human performance, but also understand firefighters. And so that's how I got to be here. And when people say, I want to do what you do, I always throw it back and say, how about instead you do what you do? Because I took these qualities, these skill sets that only I have, and I weaponize them to create a business to help my target market. My job is helping firefighters. And the next phase of my life, this PhD, is only going to intensify that, because the issue is, for the last decade or a little bit longer, scientists have been doing outstanding research in firefighting, but the people reading that research are other scientists. We need the fire service to get that information. We need someone to bridge the gap between academia and the fire service. And that person is me. So today was a little bit longer episode. If you stuck with me the whole time, thank you, and I appreciate it. I would love it if you would give me a 5-star review, share the podcast with someone you know that would enjoy it, and also get signed up for the next round of 7-Minute Science. This has been AZ on a solo episode, and I am so out.